So, we think about those polarizing topics. Arm swing. If you've been in the game for a long time and worked with skill development people, the speed skating coaches taught side to side, and the sprinting coaches were front to back. And there was fights, there was quarrels between speed skating coaches, and just, now we kind of know that it's somewhere in the middle and a little bit of both. Backhand, playing on the backhand. Some coaches are good with players playing on the backhand, others are forehand only. D to D over, something as specific as that. Are we using the back wall? Are we allowed to go indirect? There's some coaches that ask for just direct. So where did that originate from? How did that become a rule? And then the one that caught me years ago was never pass while skating backwards. This was a long time ago. I was at a coaching clinic, and that was one that came out. The instructor said, never pass, a defenseman should never pass while skating backwards. That one got my spidey senses going, started doing some video on it, and it was, at the junior level and up, it's happening over 60 times a game. So once a minute, there's a defenseman in a retreat that's passing the puck forwards. And here's actually a pretty important one right here. We can remember this one from 2023. That defenseman is retreating, passing up the ice. But you look at that and go, how did that become a rule? Why is that a rule? But then, could a U11 player do that? Do they have the strength in their body to make that play? Probably not. So is that a rule that was put in for minor hockey players that just kind of found its way up with players as they moved forward? So like these type of things, that they're either going to make you feel curious, intrigued, wanting more information, possibly a little bit opposed or defensive. And I feel that all the time. Something new comes across, I'm not quite ready for it. So this isn't a presentation on helping or trying to tell you to believe everything you hear. Far from that. So like if you're immersed in the coaching and development world, you're going to have these things coming across your desk weekly, if not daily. And with all the social media, you've probably got one, like right now, something you've dealt with that you got to figure out. Is that something I want to adopt or oppose? Is that something I need to choose a black and white on? A lot of times as a coach, you have to make those decisions of, what is this concept? Is it going to help me or is it going to hinder me? And that's a really interesting process to go through. So, it's not always a bad thing if you dig your heels in on it. Like, I've been personally on every side of this in the last 15 years. I've been the early adopter. Going out to the coaches site in 2012, I remember thinking I knew everything as a young player and then getting there and going like, I don't know a thing. So I've been the early adopter where I've been, why didn't I know this 15 years ago? I've also, there's still things that come across where it feels too gimmicky, it feels like clickbait. I'm like, no, that's not for me. I'm not adopting that one. And then also with my role with Hockey Alberta, I've been lucky enough over the last 10 years to float around and see coaches and do coach training. So I get to float some of those new ideas to people and see what the room feels about them and what the conversation is. Do people dig in their heels or do they go, oh no, I see something there, that could help us. So initially when Aaron and I talked about doing this presentation, I sent him 20 polarizing things. I'm like, I want to work through all of these things, all of these techniques. And he's like, you got 15 minutes, pick one. So the one we landed on was receiving pucks under pressure or playing against the pinch. So for the remaining time, we're just going to look at that. Like traditional teaching says, toes, nose, and stick up ice. We want to have our toe caps north. If a puck's coming from back there at a 45, we still kind of want to be moving up ice. That's the way it started, which there's no problem with. When we see this, puck goes up, this player's uncontested. It's a lefty on the left side. They catch it on the forehand, pass it on the forehand. No problem with that at all. That's optimal scenario. You're running flow drills, that's a pass you want to make over and over and over again. But what about the game? When we get into the game, this is kind of NHL level stats, but 187 breakout, headman, or stretch passes happen per game. And those are just from your back wall or from your net up to the entry or to the offensive blue line. So as you're advancing the puck, no data for these was collected in the offensive zone. So about 110 or 60% are contested. That's when there's a check within a stick length that puck receiver is getting pressure. And about 77 per game or 40% are what we just seen there, an uncontested situation. Whether it's in the D zone or the neutral zone, somewhere in the ice, they have open air in front of them. And then if we drill that down even further, this is where it gets interesting. Of those 110 contested receptions, about 70% of those, the puck receiver uses some technique, whether it's a half pivot or going right into backwards or some sort of skating technique, body technique to to build a wall just to make the environment better to collect that puck. You only see about 30% of the time when it's a contested, when there's pressure within a stick length, only about 30% of the time does that player stay nose, toes, and stick up ice and try to make a quick play against a stick or closing pressure.